Welcome to another episode of Fuck Your Job. I'm Ron Worley.
And I'm Josh Fullenweider.
Fuck your job.
Hi guys, I'm Josh Fullenweider.
Ron Worley.
And today we're talking about pros and cons of going with a franchise or not.
Yes, sir. So what brings that up today, Josh?
So that was a question in the forum in Facebook.
Right.
So it came up and I answered as much as I could, and I wrote 3.5 paragraphs. I'm like, well, that's not even enough to scratch the surface.
No, it's not. But you made a valiant effort.
Yeah. I'm like, here's enough just to get you down the road a week until we get a video out on it.
Yeah. I'm surprised somebody sent us that. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And I prefer, and you do too, prefer to go the franchise way.
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I'm getting a little soured on franchises right now, but I have reasons for that. But I really like, especially for somebody just starting out, hands down,
yeah,
franchise is the way to go.
So pros are?
Well, the biggest pro is somebody's there to hold your hand.
Yes.
Just walk you through it, tell you what your next steps are.
Right. And especially if you don't know the industry, you basically pop into any industry in the world.
Yes.
And they'll hold your hand to do it.
Well, yeah, like I'm getting into essentially the medical industry, and I'm afraid of doctors and needles, and have gone without health insurance, and now I'm like, oh yeah, let's do a medical field franchise. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a tremendous benefit, especially to somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of business experience. That's a great way to get experience too.
Yeah.
And you've you've got tremendous business experience, but
not a lot of ownership with employees experience.
Right. Same. Yeah. Which, again, just plopping into a name seems it sure is helpful, but it costs. How much did it cost you?
Let's see.
We want to do that?
We can do that. So a lot of smaller franchises, so younger ones are around $50,000.
Yeah,
just for buy-in, and then I've seen 6% to 8%, but 7% seems to be about the standard right now as for what you're going to pay as part of your gross revenue to the franchise. So that's that'll add up over time, and obviously it's a tough nut to crack right off the bat, but $50,000. Oh, and then there's the brand fund of another 2 to 3%. Right. And that's brand fund. They're like, oh, that's part of your marketing effort. I'm like, no,
you don't see it.
No. It's either regional or national branding.
Right.
So that might be a TV spot here or there, or upkeep of the national website.
Right.
Yeah, that's not paying the marketing person that works for the franchise.
Right.
That's that fund.
Right. And I think we did I think that's the only franchise I've done is the Max Muscles.
Because you licensed with Realty One, right?
No, that is a franchise as well.
So, okay.
Yeah. I forgot about that one. So yeah, when we came on, we didn't know what the hell we were doing. We pay them, I think we paid them $30,000, and we get the store opened. You pay for this, but they put in all the shelving, they do all the build out, they help you find the space.
Yeah. Now, when he's talking $30,000 and I'm talking the $50,000, that's just a fee to the franchise.
Yeah.
That doesn't include the cost of the shelving or the build out or anything else like that. All that is over and above that.
Correct.
That $50,000 is just your fee for getting some help and getting some brand recognition. And
actually, I found out that the director gets 50% of that in Max Muscle. The guy that does all the help, he basically gets bonused half that. So,
yeah, and I've heard that a lot where regional developers, they get a lot of times they get a chunk of the franchise fee, and then they get sometimes a percentage of the recurring fee.
Right.
So
they absolutely do. So I looked into being a regional developer for Max Muscle when we were soaring along, and it was half of the. So you're encouraged to open new stores because you get half of that $30,000 right off every time somebody closes one. or every time somebody sends one of those through, and then you get half of the royalties every. Which is, in my opinion, I know this isn't true, but that's why they charge the extra 2%, because that is overfunded big time.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the royalties is that when you're starting out, it's next to nothing, and as your business grows, then it becomes something. And I think, for Aaron and I, it was roughly $4,500 per store per month on average. But some months would be $8,000 or $9,000. For the Greeley store. So it got expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And when Atlas took over, they actually got rid of the Max Muscle brand.
Okay.
And she changed it to Atlas. And lo and behold, they could breathe.
Huh.
They still sell the products, but...
So now they're just buying their products from Max Muscle versus
Right.
being a branded Max Muscle store.
Correct. And can you imagine freeing up $8,000 a month,
Yeah.
especially during COVID?
Oh, yeah.
So-
And, but back to the pros and cons here, we talked a lot about the cons of having to pay that much.
Yeah,
There's a lot to be said for national brand recognition.
sure.
As long as
Absolutely.
you've got national brand recognition.
So that's okay. So I don't want to be negative because some companies are different, but my experience and what I've read, the national brand recognition is great for large companies like
McDonald's.
right,
Yeah.
right. But Max Muscle, you're still new to the area. Nobody knows who it is. What's
Mine's Drip Bar. It's still young.
Yep. Nobody's gonna know what it is until you brand it yourself. So you're gonna have to come up with your own advertising dollars as well.
The good thing, so now I've been involved with Flannel Jacks and Drip Bar.
Yep.
Flannel Jacks, of course, they're kind of on hold on just about everything right now because of COVID, and nobody can go out and do group things.
Right.
So they're not opening a whole lot. Well, they might be opening one franchise this year, and nobody's in the pipeline except for me and one other guy. And we've been in it the longest, and we're on hold. They're not opening any new corporate stores other than the ones they already had in the pipeline.
Yeah.
So as far as building a national brand, they can't do it right now.
Right.
Drip Bar, they've got, I don't know. They've got a dozen or so franchisees signed up already and a lot of them are multi-unit franchisees. So within the next year, there's going to be about, I would say probably 20 or so franchise stores nationwide.
Yeah.
And then I think they've got 100 or so that are planned out as far as being developed over the next 5 years, just with what they've got today. So that helps when you've got 100 stores nationwide versus
10. Right. Well, and I will say that both the franchises I've done, I didn't know anything about business when I came into Max Muscle, zero about business. I knew how to run a bail bonds company. I knew how to make customers happy. That's all I knew. But as far as tracking and relationship building, and when I walked in the first day, they said, "Okay, we're signed up." Man, I got a checklist, a pipeline of crap that we had to get done before such and such date to open, and that was super useful. And I think we talked about that when we were talking about going in on Flannel Jacks. Once you do one of those situations, you kind of know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's the thing. I got so far with the Flannel Jacks that when I decided to do Drip Bar, it's like, okay, here's where I want to be. Here's the realtor I want to use. Here's my plan for the build out. I had everything lined up up until a certain point because I had been through that process already.
Right. Yep.
So it was a lot easier.
So that's kind of a pro.
Well, it's a pro to your first time.
Right.
But as soon as you get to your second one, because I already knew all that stuff, it's just, why am I paying you guys when I did all this on my own? And you guys kept calling and being like, "Hey, are you ready to do this?" And I'm like, I'm 7 steps behind that or after that. And you need to catch up because we're ready to open.
And it did go much quicker. So, and I think that was when we talked about Flannel Jacks, Aaron and I's fear too is, we're just going to pay somebody, because we'd already been down the franchise hole before. Which I don't want to call them holes, man. Seriously, they're a great deal for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Who they're really good for is for people that have a busy life. Like,
Yeah.
You know, you're just plugging into a system that's already there.
Yeah.
And they're really
if you're not planning on working it, like being the full-time manager of
Right.
it, there's a lot of franchises where you can just be like, okay, I'm going to take books and HR and that part of it.
right.
I'm going to pay somebody else. And yes, I'm not going to make a whole lot of money each month because I'm not the full-time manager, but I'm building an asset. Once that loan's paid off, then all that money comes to me and I can build it for a few years until I do want to quit my job and take over that manager
Yep.
position. And then all that money's mine.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So it's very handy. And I think there's another, I feel like we've been bashing on them, but there's another good thing about having a franchise, and that's that. Oh, I'm forgetting, Joshua.
I've got one if you want to think
go
on
ahead.
it. Okay. Financing
Oh,
and
yeah, that
attracting
is easy.
investor. Like if you're wanting to partner with somebody,
Yep.
or if you want financing, doing a franchise is absolutely the way to go for your first time out.
Now, why is that? Because the SBA loans and
SBA, so not right now because everybody's COVID scared, but at one point I think you could get 10% down on a franchise,
Yeah.
which is incredible. Now that was pretty rare and had to be a really solid franchise, and you had to be a solid person and you had to have good assets to back it up.
Right.
But even still, it was 20% down if you didn't have all those great things. 20% down is phenomenal. Considering like most of the time when people would bring me a business plan of, hey, I want to start this,
right,
see ya, I don't even want to talk to you.
right,
Like, and I did startup financing.
Yeah.
And if you don't have assets or a track record or something like that, no, I don't want to finance you.
right,
If you don't have industry experience, not a chance.
yeah,
So, so franchising definitely the way to go. It
So-
takes a lot of risk out of the equation for both you and the lender.
yeah, absolutely,
And then that's a good thing, like especially if you're wanting to attract a partner and be like, hey, I'm getting into this franchise. Everything's done. Here's their track record. Here's what we're going to do with it. And they don't hand you a business plan because they legally can't, but you can ask them questions and help as you build out your business plan.
So, and I noticed, so two things. I remember what I was going to say. Once you get into the systems that they put in place, you kind of get your bearings straight. You're able to change things to the way to make them work for you. And the great thing about franchises is they live off of their franchisees. So they tend to listen, and they use the franchisees' systems that they figure out in real world application to further help other people out.
Yeah.
And then I think that's the great thing about franchises too is, yes, you're going to get your lending, but like you said, bringing on partners. When you have a solid foundation like that, let's call it McDonald's, for instance. If we're going to buy 100 McDonald's, that's a great brand name and people will buy into that.
Yeah. Well, I've got I know somebody who owns a ton of Arby's and I think it's Jack in the Box. And he's super smart, but like for him, he does have a partner and they went into it together, and it helped him get that partner.
Right.
And then they built it off of there, and they keep buying more franchises because they know the system, they know what to expect. And because they're so familiar with the system, they can look at a store that's underperforming, diagnose an issue really quick, and fix it.
Yep.
So,
and that's a good point too. That was something Aaron and I were doing, was we'd grab a store that was failing. All of our stores that we had were failing except for the first one we opened. And we got them at a huge discount because with a franchise, usually after somebody owns it, you can just do a transfer fee, and so it's not $30,000 every time you buy a new store. It's $7,500 or whatever, and that's negotiable too. And something I can tell people, if you're looking into a franchise, you should absolutely try and negotiate right off the bat. Some of those fees are negotiable, the royalties are negotiable.
And if you can't negotiate, the royalties because a lot of them don't like to.
Right.
I will say the smaller, younger ones probably will cave on it a little bit. But if they won't negotiate on that, you can often negotiate a lot of the other items in the franchise agreement.
Right.
So it's not just that. So like we negotiated that we have first right of refusal on the territorial developer for the Front Range in Colorado.
Oh, that's great.
So things like that, we changed little things, and I got a lawyer involved to help me with that and bring up things.
Good. Yeah, that's smart. It's worth the money.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah.
And the newer franchises, they're expecting you to bring a lawyer in, and they're going. They know.
I bring in Aaron Brady.
She's
a
good
hell of
enough.
a negotiator.
Yeah.
So we were going to open a lending company, and we negotiated right off the bat, and I felt guilty because I'm like, that's their fee. That's what they charge.
I should just bring Erin with me.
You should. She went in.
Whatever you save me, you get half of it.
Yeah. She saved us. I think she saved us $5,000 on the franchise fee right off the bat, and then she just kept going with the negotiations. And it's cool. It's fun to watch her work, but it's absolutely 100% applicable to these kind of business deals. You don't just have to take it or leave it. So, and they want you there. They want you open, and then they'll do whatever they can to get you to do that. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Other pros and cons. Let me think. Cons, you're locked into their system, and if they don't like what you're doing, they can kick you out of the system.
Yeah.
And they don't really have to pay you for it. They can just say bye. They can force you to sell it to them. There's a lot of negatives if you don't do it their way. Now, that being said, that's not their goal.
Right.
I have heard some nasty things about, I watched a video about, I think it was Golden Corral, where they kind of screwed over a franchisee one time, or at least one time. And it was gross. It was nasty. So just be aware of who you're partnering with, because you're in it for a long time. You got to get a good feeling about the people you're with. Yeah,
usually between 5 and 10 years for the first time you sign. And I've heard of Max Muscle didn't do this because I don't know why they didn't. They had a few people that have gone against their franchise ways, and they just kick them to the curb, and the people change their name. But especially when you're not paying royalties, and sometimes they have minimums on royalties, they've got programs in place to try and save your store. Like you said, they don't want to just take it over, but there are some companies that do want to take it over.
Yeah.
Because I know one, I'm not going to say their name because I'm afraid they would sue. But every time a store was underperforming, not even out of business, just underperforming, they would make it a corporate store.
Yeah.
And so that, your franchisee would open it up, spend all the money, do everything, and then it would be taken from them.
Yep.
I'm sure there's a lot of criteria in there that they weren't meeting.
Oh, yeah.
But it's all part of the contract.
The way a lot of the franchise agreements are worded, that chances are you've probably violated a term of the agreement before you even get the store open.
Right.
I mean, so I'll say with Flannel Jacks, they gave me 90 days to have a lease signed. That was a year and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
So
you already broke it.
So I broke that real quick. What's it called? Drip Bar, that was one of the things we had longer, but I met that criteria without a problem with Drip Bar. But I'm sure there's something in that timeline that I've probably violated already. But, that's to protect their ass. It's kind of like in banking. I would track everything that everybody did wrong, because when we went to foreclose on somebody, it was not just they didn't pay, but they also haven't met this term of the agreement, this term, this term, this term.
Right.
So that the judge isn't going to say, well, they missed 2 payments, suck it up and deal with it, it's Corona.
Right.
They'd be like, no, they've missed a year and a half, this is a year and a half of bad behavior.
Right.
So.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, that's
but that being said, so one of the things I've heard is that don't get involved with a franchise that is mostly corporate owned.
Oh, right.
So like if you've got a mature franchise that has stores nationwide and they're probably over 25% corporate owned. I'd be very interested to how they got those stores.
Right.
If they're self-funding them, great, fine, that makes sense. But if they're like, well, we had a couple of franchisees fail and we took those stores over, that's when I'd be a little bit wary about it.
The other thing to watch for is their online sales, especially now during Corona.
Mm-hmm.
If you're competing with the corporate offices online,
Yeah.
they're going to win.
Oh yeah, because you have to pay the markup on the product, and then
Right.
you have to pay a franchise fee on it.
Right. And they have all the dollars to spend in advertising for their corporate site because you're paying them 2% a year.
Yeah.
And another big thing is the ability for them to, if they have a product versus a service, you want to make sure that product is something that they're selling. The identity of the franchise needs to be franchise, because that means they're taking care of the customer, which is you. If their identity is a product, if they're just selling you a product and that's how they're making their money, now you're in trouble because you have to buy this product in order for them to make money, and they don't give a crap about you and your business.
Now you're talking about online, and we going back to what we said earlier about negotiating up front. If it is a product that they can sell online, you should be negotiating in that franchise agreement up front that you get a % of online sales that get shipped within your territory.
Right.
Yeah.
So we tried that with Max Muscle, and it worked to a point, but
you can't. How do you track it?
they had some way they tracked it, and I don't know, because most people weren't even our customer, and they would attach, like Fort Morgan would be attached to Greeley. That's 45 miles away, and because they don't have a store, we would get it, and that was all great because those people actually did come here to shop.
Right.
But then Loveland, Greeley, like a lot of our people came from Loveland
Yeah.
and Fort Collins because those
But
stores
you weren't getting the money
we
for
weren't
it.
getting the money. Yeah. So really, I think it was a wash. It didn't do any good.
Yeah. But
Now, the other agreement we had was that they had to use MSRP prices.
okay.
So their corporate online sales were actually more expensive than what you could get in a store,
Well, that's good.
pushing them to the store.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's what you want with that business model, because when they're in the store, you can upsell better.
Right.
Especially with your nutrition program.
Right.
So,
Yep. And yeah, you just want to make sure the product isn't better online than it is in store.
yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know, man. All in all, I'd say do it, huh?
Yeah, if it's your first time out, go with a franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you have no experience in the industry you're looking at,
Or business experience.
or business experience, or money, or all of the above.
Right. Do it.
Now,
that way.
there's another con I will say. I hands down think it's going to be more expensive on your build out, your furniture, all of that with a franchise than to do it on your own.
Because it's got to look a certain way.
Because they want it to look a
company.
certain way. And like for me, I'm like, I could probably build a axe throwing court.
Right.
Like I've got all the skills, I could do that. And they're like, no, you need to hire a professional. They need to use this type of lumber, and
Right.
like this is the material that's getting used. I'm like, that material's $2 more a square foot than this material though. Like, and it's the same thing that looks pretty much the same.
Yep.
And so, yeah, not so much on the value.
And you have to pay travel time because those people are nationwide. They're running around building these same things all over the nation. They're a crew that comes and stays in a hotel.
Yeah.
So they're paying them and you're paying them. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of extra cost. I could hire a contractor probably for a third of the price.
Yeah. So with these newer franchises, they rely a lot on you finding local contractors.
Oh, cool.
That being said, Drip Bar already is working on developing a contractor that's their preferred contractor. And I could use him if I chose to, and it's going to cost about the same because I'm not going with the bottom of the barrel contractor either. So,
Right.
like, I want a good quality contractor, and we've talked about contractors and why we chose Dennis King over
Yeah.
the other guy in the
Yeah.
past.
No kidding.
So, I mean, there's definitely a difference in the quality of contractors. But,
Sure.
But my contractor also walked the space with me and said, hey, we could save money here, 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 and here. And I take it back to the corporate and say, we need to change some things because this is getting pricey. And they're like, no, this is the way it needs to be consistent with our brand.
Yep. Yeah. And you signed.
I'm like, shit.
Yeah. You know what though? I think with Drip Bar especially, a model that you know nothing about. It's in the medical industry.
Yeah.
It's a little spooky. You got to hire. You need some backing. Mm-hmm. And Drip Bar's got its backing. It's a franchise. It's got some clout. You're actually depending on some. You can say to your doctor, "Oh no, we have 100 stores here, and this is what they're doing."
Yeah.
And it's not Josh and Rebecca out doing this. You know,
Yeah.
And can't stand needles and all that stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. And with a new franchise, I think it's very important for you to find, like, if it's a young franchise, they should have somebody backing them up. So Flannel Jacks, it was a new franchise. It was started by another franchise. Mm-hmm. And so they had 100 stores already nationwide with their other franchise.
Right.
They knew how to run franchises. They knew how to develop systems. So
Right.
I was very comfortable with them. Drip Bar, they brought in a partner who had already started, developed, ran, and then eventually sold out of a franchise. So, and there's that knowledge.
Right.
And you need that. If, like, don't sign up with somebody just because they paid $10,000 to have a lawyer draft an FDD.
Right.
Like there's a difference, and you'll know.
Know the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, that's all I got.
I think we could have done the Flannel Jacks without Flannel Jack.
I think so too. All right. See ya.
Join us on Facebook at The Jobless Legion or subscribe to our YouTube channel and like, comment, and share.
So that we can get the message out to aspiring entrepreneurs just like you.
Thank you.